Hey everybody, warm welcome to the show. I'm Rebecca McLaughlin-Easton, and this week we're in Abu Dhabi attending the Milken Institute Summit, gathering together thought leaders to discuss some of the world's most pressing problems. We talk regional current affairs and social and economic reforms in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with a prominent member of its royal family.
The kingdom is open to everybody. Whoever wants to come, they're welcome.
A little bit later on, we'll do the sums on what Britain's exit from the European Union means for investment flows into the Middle East region. But first, here's everything you need to know about an important summit that took place in the UAE capital, and it attracted global CEOs and celebrities.
Decision-makers and trailblazers spanning fields from economics to wellness attended the Milken Institute Middle East and Africa Summit 2020. The event featured a diverse guest list from Paris Hilton to Deepak Chopra. Milken has helping people build meaningful lives as its mission statement, focusing on areas like workplace development and financial innovation. The Global Opportunity Index report published by Milken analysed the improvements made by Gulf Cooperation Council countries last year. The study found that their performance lagged in four main areas that affect foreign investors' potential attraction to the region, namely transparency of information, workforce talent, economic openness, and protecting investors' rights. The CEO of Milken told Euronews that the region had great potential to improve matters.
Well, you need to not only put in place laws that do that, which many jurisdictions have, but you have to have the political will to enforce them.
Milken also said that accelerating reforms would help regional economies better diversify away from oil, but that decision was ultimately the government's.
There's no question that the challenge is here, that the capital is here, that the ability to diversify away from dependence on energy is here, but that it's going to take a good deal of work.
The Milken report also pointed to events like Expo 2020 in Dubai and Saudi Arabia's presidency of the G20 this year as unique opportunities to attract international investments. And that is where I started my conversation with one of the most high-profile diplomats at this year's summit, His Royal Highness Turki Al Faisal bin Abdulaziz Al Saud from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Your Royal Highness, a very warm welcome to Inspire Middle East.
Thank you very much.
Many analysts say that Saudi Arabia, as a matter of urgency, needs to better protect the interests of investors, have more economic openness and more financial transparency. So how quickly are these reforms being pushed through to encourage greater FDI flows?
The kingdom established the Vision 2030 nearly 5 years ago, and it set a transformation stage to get ready to go to 2030 for 5 years. And we're coming to the end of that time now. What I've heard from official statements is that we're pretty much on target.
With a population of more than 34 million in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, job creation is an urgent matter, not least a challenging one too. Will you be able to achieve that by 2030?
I hope so. You know, it's not just job creation, but it's also the sense of well-being in an environment around us that is not so well established, either in terms of political security or stability, or in even financial capability. We're surrounded by hotspots around us and by failing states in various parts of our world.
Now, for the first time, Saudi will be hosting the G20 Summit, but some human rights organizations and anti-corruption movements have voiced concerns, saying that they will even boycott the civil meetings ahead of the summit. How seriously are Saudi heeding their concerns?
I think that's looking at it in the short term. So if they want to see what Saudi Arabia is like, they should come and engage rather than boycott. And so the kingdom is open to everybody. Whoever wants to come, they're welcome. If they don't want to come, they'll miss an opportunity.
How do you respond to those who say that hosting the G20 is an effort by Saudi to deflect attention away from the situation in Yemen and its human rights records?
There's no deflection there. And we're open. We have commitments. We have commitments in the Yemen. We're engaged in that. We're supporting the legitimate government in Yemen against a usurper that used military means to try to take over the country. And in other issues of human rights and so on, come and see. And you will be surprised and hopefully engaged with us for a continuing visiting program.
Do you ever foresee a time when the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will have independent political parties and even embrace trade unions?
The future is in the hands of our young people. If they want to go that route, that's their option. My options are almost finished. Looking upon the past is not necessarily the thing that I want to do, but I want to see the future for my children and grandchildren, and I would like them to be living in an area of stability and security.
So many of the social reforms in Saudi Arabia have been widely embraced by the people in the kingdom, but not everybody. How do you keep both sides happy in what was formerly a very conservative kingdom?
There will always be those who have a different view of development in any country, not just Saudi Arabia. And the thing to do with them is to engage with them and talk to them and try to show them that whatever they are afraid of or have some misapprehensions about, well, let's talk about those things.
Let's switch to the US elections. Who would you most like to see sitting in the Oval Office? Who would best represent Saudi's interests in terms of US foreign policy?
We worked with all American presidents since 1945. Both countries have maintained a strong relationship. We've had our differences, we've had our ups and downs, but on the whole, I think our strategic interests have maintained themselves in the forefront of our interests. So whoever sits in the White House is welcome in Riyadh, and hopefully will welcome whoever sits on the throne in Riyadh to Washington.
Can I get your opinion on the current tensions between the US and Iran?
Well, I hope there's not going to be conflict. And I think this is something not just we, but also the United States is very much concerned about. The challenge there is that Iran has been provoking conflict. You've seen how they did with the tankers a few months back in the Gulf and in the Arabian Sea. You've seen their attack on the Aramco facilities last September and so on. Hopefully, Iran will become a constructive partner in the area rather than the destructive interloper that is trying to dominate the area.
And in terms of levels of Saudi security, is it as fortified as it can be in the wake of those attacks?
Well, it's a challenge. And not just Saudi interests are engaged. You know, the 5 or 6 million barrels that were hit by those missiles and drones when Iran attacked affect the whole world.
Your Royal Highness, it's been fascinating talking to you. Thank you for your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Come and see us in Saudi.
We will. Thank you very much. We now turn our attention to the United Kingdom's business ties with the GCC region, of course, against the backdrop of Brexit. Rosie Lees-Thompson has more on how commercial links, trade relations and investment flows could be affected in this new era.
With the ink drying on the Brexit divorce papers from the EU, for the first time since 1973, the UK is free to negotiate its own trade deals. And for many Britons, the Middle East is looking like an exciting new investment arena. Chris Doyle, director of a non-profit organisation working towards UK Middle East policy, believes that Britain will be capitalising on well-established ties to generate PACs.
Britain has always had an historic relationship with GCC states. It was, aside from Saudi Arabia, the colonial plough or the protector of these states. And we trade off that, those links, those ties that are very deep. And I think that there would just be lots of efforts to remind them that although we've had a very bumpy 12 to 18 months in Britain, that now we're open for business and that Britain is back in the game.
The problem is bilateral trade agreements can take years to negotiate. But many countries in the Middle East have relatively low barriers to trade. So despite no official free trade deals, many businesses find it easy to operate. Outside the European Union, the GCC is the UK's second largest export market behind the US. Last year, the total trade in goods and services accounted for $54.8 billion US, according to British government figures.
There are sectors going forward, things like tech, things like healthcare, things like automation and transportation, that are going to drive the way communities and countries evolve. And the UK is keen to partner with the Middle East and the Gulf as it embarks on that same journey.
With the hopes of developing this relationship further, in 2018, the British government established a dedicated UK export finance team in Dubai.
We have more than £30 billion worth of financial support available for projects in this region. And the reason we do that is not only to provide funding support to the respective countries, but it also allows UK companies providing goods and services to get involved in projects they might not ordinarily get involved in.
With the pressure on to make Brexit a success, the UK government launched a global campaign aimed at wooing foreign trade partners. Ministers and diplomats have been energetically creating opportunities for UK companies. Last year, Solar Water joined the UK's trade mission to Saudi Arabia. And 9 months after entering the world market, the British company has signed multi-million-dollar contracts with Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Using technology, Solar Water distills seawater into fresh water.
UK technology is being recognised by the Middle East as something that can be extremely helpful to their economies thriving and their communities thriving.
But the clock is ticking on how many trade pacts the UK can make before she leaves the EU's customs union on December 31st, with some viewing the number as a measure of her future success or failure.
Well, that is a wrap of our show. We hope that you enjoyed it, and be sure to catch all of our programmes online at Euronews.com. Before I leave you, here is some inspiring Instagram posts that we especially liked this week. I'll see you next time.
Intisar al-Sabah, a member of Kuwait's royal family, shared this photo of, quote, a group of power women during the Milken Summit. And Nithin from India was delighted to bump into Deepak Chopra, whom he considers to be a legend.